Hello! Welcome to Polymath-ish. I'm your host Storm Hardy, and to most people, Canada looks pretty normal on the surface. Trees and lakes and snow and hockey. But once I started researching for this episode, I realized my home country is full of organisms that should absolutely not exist. People think Canada's wildlife is just moose, beavers, and the occasional psychopathic goose. But we also have bears drenched in myth, caterpillars drenched in ice, and forests drenched in fire. What kind of sad, self-hating Canadian would I be if I didn't share some of that wonder with you, viewer? So, without further ado, here are some of the weird and wonderful biological features of Canada. Across the coast and islands of northern British Columbia lay the temperate Great Bear Rainforest. In the millions of acres of forest lay a protector of unusual sight, fully white black bears known as spirit bears. 10 to 20% of all black bears in the Great Bear Rainforest are considered spirit bears, all of which have a striking white or cream color instead of their typical glossy black. Recent estimates of the spirit bears count has it at around 200 individuals. Spirit bears are not albino. Genetically, they are nigh identical to normal black bears. In fact, a spirit bear can come from two non-spirit bear parents. The difference comes about from a single chromosomal quirk, which is actually the same one that is responsible for red hair in humans. Scientists are ultimately uncertain about why this white black bear has stuck around in this corner of Canada. However, with such stark physical differences, there must be an adaptive reason for why these bears stuck around, especially at such high levels for a recessive gene. For example, cinnamon bears are a variety of black bear with a reddish-brown hue most common in the United States' western areas. This is likely because it helped trick other animals into thinking it's a grizzly bear, an opponent no one wants to tangle with. Multiple studies have been done on the adaptive function of the spirit bear's white hue. One of the most entertaining studies to me is when researchers dressed head to toe in both black and white costumes and waded into streams of salmon. This study, along with others, suggests that a spirit bear's light coat helps them catch more fish when hunting for salmon in the daytime. However, it drastically reduces their stealth in every other context. Even though biologists have only recently started studying the spirit bear, they've been known about for hundreds, if not thousands of years through the stories, culture, and myths of the indigenous people local to the Great Bear Rainforest region. These First Nations, such as the Kitasoo-Hi-Hi and Gitgat, celebrate the spirit bear, or Moxgamal, in traditional song and dance. These people are the bear's most fearless advocates. Elders in the Kitasoo-Hi-Hi kept the existence of the spirit bear a secret during the fur trade, as they were afraid European fur traders would be enamored by the gorgeous pelt of the animal and kill them. These scared bears could not be killed by Europeans, they wouldn't have it. So they kept quiet and kept the bears from being harmed. Finally, in 2016, after decades of conflict and negotiations with logging companies, 27 First Nations, including the Kitasoo-Hi-Hi, enshrined the protection of up to 85% of the Great Bear Rainforest into Canadian law. It's a wonder what the work of these First Nations people, and the spirit bear in tandem, got done. In fact, this little story inspires a pet theory of mine. What if the true adaptive function is not only that spirit bears catch more fish when white, but the local peoples safeguarded them from harm which might otherwise befall them, long enough for that salmon advantage to matter? Food for thought, at least. In the middle of Toronto stand some of the last surviving fragments of one of the rarest ecosystems on Earth. This environment is the Black Oak Savanna, which contains prairie grasses, wildflowers, and the titular towering black oak trees. The Black Oak Savanna ecosystem is special because it must burn to rejuvenate itself. The flames clear out invasives while creating space for seeds and acorns adapted for the ecosystem. Meanwhile, the fire is releasing new nutrients into the soil for the next generation to take advantage of. The trees themselves withstand the blaze, a marvelous sight to behold. But this sprawling ecosystem that once spread over 5 million acres of land is now reduced to the 60 allocated acres of High Park's total 400 acres. Before the arrival of European settlers, fire regularly shaped the ecosystem. Indigenous peoples in the High Park area took care of the land with controlled burns or by allowing the occasional lightning strike to happen. European settlers who were unfamiliar with the landscape were displeased by this, the encroaching smoke just a health hazard to their new settlements. When Toronto opened High Park in 1876, the landscape underwent a drastic change. The growing demand for recreational space clashed with the need for the land to burn. Sports fields, toboggan runs, and other facilities just didn't make sense in an environment where fire needed to burn. So even in High Park, the savanna retreated. The biggest reason the oaks weren't regenerating is that High Park is a typical urban park. Perfect trees and manicured lawns sprawl the green space. There were no ideal seed beds for acorns to set and begin growth. Acorns that did fall were taken by squirrels who could easily see them in the short manicured grass. Luckily, since the year 2000, Toronto has been doing prescribed burns to High Park to preserve what is left of the black oak savanna. Let's just hope we weren't too late. Most caterpillars live life in the fast lane. They eat at speed, grow even faster, and turn into butterflies or moths in just a few weeks. But in the cold, barren tundra of the Canadian Arctic archipelago stands one of the most squishable, snow-laden, slow-growing creepy crawlies you'll ever know. Covered head to toe in a thick coat of long reddish-brown hair, the Arctic woolly bear is one of the largest land insects in the Arctic. To manage this, they stretch out their molting phase for 7 years. Molting is the term for the period of time when a caterpillar does all its eating, growing, and maturing before turning into either a moth or a butterfly. An instar, likewise, is the term for the period between these molts. An Arctic woolly bear goes through 7 instars, each lasting 11 months of the year. You see, each year's molt takes place for a month at most. During the early days of the month of June, the snow melts from the tundra, and this is when the Arctic woolly bear awakens from hibernation. During this time, vegetation finally starts to green around the area. Among the earliest of these plants to emerge is the Arctic willow, a particular favorite of our little friend. The caterpillars spend their next 3 weeks chomping on the willow's leaves and its shoots. When you can't find them doing that, you can find them lounging and sunbathing on rocks that have been heated by the daytime sun. At the end of June, these caterpillars will find their way back into cracks and holes in the tundra rocks. There they start spinning their hibernaculum out of silken material. A hibernaculum is like a double-layered sleeping bag that shields the creature from parasites. As the cracks of the rocks likely freeze over, the Arctic woolly bear stays cozy there thanks to its natural antifreeze. Here they stay in hibernation, waiting for the next June. When the 7th summer arrives, the newly awakened caterpillar becomes a pupa, the form in which it will finally change from caterpillar to moth. The transformation takes a total of 2 weeks. When the moths emerge, they never eat a single thing, living solely off their fat. No, they spend the next couple of weeks having tons and tons of sex. I don't blame them. If you're going out, may as well have fun. The moths lay eggs from these encounters until they either end up dying laying eggs or making eggs. The remaining eggs hatch in late July to early August. With fall creeping in, most plants have started to wither. The newly hatched caterpillars must find a stony crack to go into and hibernate until next June, starting the cycle over once again. For these caterpillars, life is like jumping into cryostasis a bunch of times to see the only points that matter. Maybe these little guys would be good future astronauts, or at least, we can take a little bit of them with us, in the way we'd operate. Have you ever seen what it looks like for a can of baked beans to run for its life? Or if you're from the Great Plains region, you may have. Most owls secure high roosts with great airflow, but the burrowing owl is an exception. No, instead they choose to live up to 1 meter underground. They have the ability to dig their own burrows, but most burrowing owls prefer to take over the burrows of ground squirrels or prairie dogs instead. Why build a house when you can kick out nearby residents? The entrance of the owl's burrow is a sight, or smell, to behold. They lay out welcome mats of feces, collected from nearby livestock, horses, or other mammals. While you may assume this is to mask the smell from other predators, and that may not hurt them per se, the real adaptive reason is because burrowing owls love to eat dung beetles, and laying out this map brings them right to their doorstep. The entrance can also be found adorned with cigarette butts, bottle caps, and Barbie doll parts, although no known purpose for this has been found. Maybe they just like how they look. Burrowing owls can have large families, up to 7 children per clutch. Due to being underground with so many others, the owl's tolerance to carbon dioxide is quite high. To feed so many whining children, burrowing owls stockpile food. In fact, in Saskatchewan in 1997, a reserve of 200 rodents was found in a burrowing owl's den. I wonder if the parent owls thought they still needed more, or they thought they were set for a while. These owls go by many monikers. Old Western cowboys, for example, dubbed them howdy birds, due to the way their head moves but eyes stay on point. People more recently online have been setting the movements to the musical ragers they play at the club. But my most favorite moniker of them is running baked beans. You see, when threats come nearby, burrowing owls mimic the sound of a hissing rattlesnake. However, if all else fails, they'll bolt. Their long featherless legs propping up their near-cylindrical body has been likened to a can of baked beans running for dear life. These owls fly the coop in more ways than one too, being one of the only true migrators in the entire owl family. Many spend their colder months much further south. One female tracked in Wyoming was found all the way in Acapulco, Mexico, 3,500 kilometers south. So, if you're in need of canned of baked beans, make sure you're looking in the warmer months in Canada. You come across the scene. The cool autumn air strikes your skin. A massacre has taken place. You stand on the stream edge and look upon dozens of decapitated salmon? This is the calling card of one of Canada's most interesting canines, what are known colloquially as sea wolves. Sea wolves, which reside along the coastlines and islands of the Pacific Northwest of Canada, do this type of massacre seasonally in the autumn when the salmon returns to the rivers and streams. A single pack of these wolves can eat hundreds of fish in one night. In fact, up to 85% of a sea wolf's diet can be fish and other marine life like barnacles, crabs, clams, and mussels, essentially whatever they can find on shore. To find this bounty of seafood, sea wolf packs swim from island to island in search of food. The longest known distance ever swam was 13 kilometers at a time. Children aren't given a free ride either, as pups as young as 4 months old start to swim with their pack. Researchers have only started to take notice of the sea wolf's unique lifestyle. They find that sea wolves make a distinct population of gray wolves that have a unique seafood diet, shorter stature, and thinner coats, all confirmed by differences in their genetic code. But much like in our spirit bear story, indigenous people knew of the wolves much longer than researchers ever did. Indigenous peoples who live on the coast have featured the sea wolf in art, stories, and architecture. To the wolf clans of the Tlingit, Tsimshian, Niska, and other groups, they represent loyalty and strong family ties. The Seychot tell a story where a supernatural sea wolf named Kukuwanchis transforms into an orca when he jumps into the water. Yet even they are confused by the wolf's propensity for eating only the heads of salmon. Perhaps they've learned the body can be contaminated with deadly tapeworms, or maybe, just maybe, they taste the best. I think the main thing to take away from our video safari is the incredible amount of ecological information that is known to the First Nations people of Canada. In almost all our stories, First Nations people knew of and protected these majestic creatures and landscapes far longer than European settlers could even imagine. Whether it be the ash-laden landscape of the Black Oak Savanna, or the stalwart silence from First Nation elders on Spirit Bear existence, they were there. Maybe we should respect these peoples for their ecological wisdom more. I think that's a more important takeaway than simply Canada has weird shit. So please, support your local Indigenous communities. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and don't forget, never stop thinking.